Right. Adrian, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the Positive Podcast. How you doing?
Pleasure to be back on the podcast, Adam. Really great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you too. You too, Adrian. Now I've really, really, really missed talking to you on here. It's been, is it like what, a couple of years?
At
2020. It was
least a
about
couple of
two,
years.
two
Yeah,
years, two or three, maybe.
possibly three. Because since I last talked to you, I wasn't doing the career that I currently am, and I've been doing this
Yeah.
career now for at least 2.5 years. I'm in
No,
hospitality, and I wasn't in that when we were talking. But yeah, great to be back.
no, it's good. It's good to have you back. And we were talking a while before we hit record, and you was talking about a video, and you mentioned a quote by Mike Tyson. Did you want to
Oh
go over
yeah,
it? So it's
okay.
really
So yeah,
interesting.
just for people who've because we were talking obviously, and now you press record. Um, just talking about how people have different perceptions, which is part of human life. And sometimes I get taken aback, which isn't very often, but sometimes I do get taken aback how people have hugely, widely differing perceptions to my own. And that also ties in with something, another little pet hate of mine, which is toxic positivity. I try to stay away from it now. I used to be involved in it, during the COVID and the lockdown, and it became very apparent that people really, really relied on a lot of positive phrases and positive belief systems, which is fine. If it works for you, that's great. But I fear that you can get carried away with it. And if you're not careful, the sort of positive phrases that we keep hearing time and time again actually don't really mean a lot if you really take them apart. And I also feel not only that, but they can also be really misleading. And that I think is potentially dangerous to some people. I found a quote on my FYP on TikTok, which was life is a game. We can't undo a move like in chess, but we can make the next one better. Now, just on face value, that's fine. Okay, that's great. It's like learn from your mistakes and move on. I've got no real problem with that. I just happened for some reason. I normally don't get involved on TikTok. I don't normally reply. I don't know what happened to me. I just happened to want to just respond to that particular one. And the point I wanted to say to anybody who was reading that quote about life being a game that you can't undo, but you can make your next move better was just be aware that you are not alone on this planet or on this plane or this society or this community. So whatever moves we make, we are not making those moves without potential effects on others and from others. So I said, look, don't forget also other people exist and they're also making moves, which means that they get to decide on what they do to you and to your life to some extent. And then I was a bit cheeky and I said, look, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, like Mike Tyson famously said. We've all got this plan. So I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I'm going to be this person. I'm going to be that person. That's fine that you've got that goal, but just be aware that unless you've considered that someone else or some other group may have some impact on you as well, if you're not resilient and you're not ready for that, you're going to be back to square zero and you're going to be depressed and you're going to be unhappy. Why is life like this? I was just trying to tell people be prepared. And I got quite a lot of negative response to that. Why are you being pessimistic? And I didn't get involved any further than that. But I just wanted to sort of bring up that point that people can perceive things very, very differently. And to this day, sometimes it still shocks me that people um, can't see things from other people's perspectives.
No, I agree with what you're saying, and I can see what you mean. And I think it's true though, isn't it? Because if I'm just trying to think of what avenue to put that in.
I mean,
So say,
again, before you press record, I
yeah,
was just about to break it down or reflect on a very similar situation in order to make it easier for other people to understand. It's like you driving a car. Let's say you have a small prang in it, right? But generally, you're a good driver. You've had a small prang, you've made that mistake. You can't undo that move, but you can make your next move better, as the phrase says on TikTok. And I would say, yeah, that's fine. You're going to learn from that mistake. You're not going to make that mistake again, and you're going to continue to drive. But if you haven't considered that somebody else may still drive into you, someone else may still crash into you, someone else may go through a red light, even though you're sitting at a red light and you think, well, I'm doing the right thing. Someone else is not doing the right thing, and it's going to impact your life. If you are not aware of that possibility in life, it's going to hit doubly hard when it happens to you. And actually, that's actually happened to me. By the by, I was at a traffic light right at the front, and car behind didn't stop. Nothing can prepare you for that unless you're looking in the rear view. And even if you're looking in the rear view mirror, you can brace for it, but it's still gonna hurt. That's, I guess, the point I wanted to make to people. Don't think that when you are in the process of changing who you are, we're all trying to be better people, better human beings. But don't think that the process is simply, or the journey is simply one-sided. You've got to consider that other people are going to have an impact on you. And if you haven't considered that, you're going to find that job of growth and change a lot harder.
No, I agree. And I think, like you said, people sometimes get tunneled into not looking at other eventualities, not thinking about risks, not I'm just speculating in
Yeah,
general. This is the way things are gonna be, da da da. And not taking things into consideration. And I think we just sometimes go on autopilot, some people, and just think I'm going from A, I'm going to B, and it's going to work this way. Or if people have had things work out for them and they've not really had things of hardship or many mistakes or things happen to them, they just have this subjective view on life that
they're
this
very
is
lucky people. They're
yeah,
very, very lucky people. And I know at least one person who you are completely describing.
mm,
And sometimes when I talk to this person, my jaw is slightly open because I can't believe that they haven't had even close to the experiences I've had in my life. And I'm not talking about great, big, huge experiences. I'm talking about really basic day to day, everyday experiences. And they've just somehow got through life. They're in their 40s and they haven't really had anything happen to them.
mm,
And like you just said, you think, wow, you're on autopilot and nothing's happened to you. Part of me is really angry because I want to shake them and say, yeah, you're not aware of real life. Part of me is very jealous of them because I think, God, you lucky son of a gun.
yeah,
You've just literally bimbled your way through life, and your life has been blessed to be
mm,
relatively easy. And a
mm.
part of me is actually a little worried and sad for them because I think when something does happen to you, you are in no way, shape, or form going to be ready for it.
And I think it gives you more resilience. I think when I mean, bad things shouldn't have to happen, or people shouldn't have to go through certain things in life. But I think if you've had certain things happen, it gives you like calluses almost. It gives you're more able to deal with pressure, you're more able to deal with hard situations, and I think that's why hospitality is great. I did that for many years. I started at
I remember you
16.
telling me when we first
Yeah,
met that you were, yeah,
I did it, and I was, you know what it's like. It's mental
yeah,
sometimes, but
yes,
you're able to deal with other avenues in life, difficult situations, because do you know what I mean? You've been in that cooking pot almost.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I said, you can feel sorry for people that haven't been through it. And
Mm.
exactly like you said as well, I don't wish for anyone to go through anything bad. I don't want people
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have bad experiences to learn. But I think it's good. I mean, the particular person I've got in mind, they're not even aware that bad things can happen.
Mm.
They haven't read about them. They haven't seen them on television. They don't watch even the news. They're just not aware
Mm.
of anything except their very, very um, existence and their very closed existence. They go to work, they come home, they go shopping, they eat their dinner, and they have their hobby, and that is their life.
Mm.
Anything outside of those parameters, they're not really interested in.
Yeah.
And as I said to you, I get all these sudden feelings of anger, jealousy, sadness, and sorrow for them all at the same time. One side of me thinks, God, how can you live your life like that? And the other side of me thinks, oh my God, I do actually feel sorry for you because when it does happen, it's going to be a painful experience. If it does happen, I'm not saying that I want it to, but life has a habit of, we all can't get through it scot-free. It'll come and hit you at some point. But it's still, you're absolutely right. People are so different to whether they're open or not to new experiences, whether they want to learn about experiences just in case it was to happen to them. I mean, I'll read about
Mm.
something or I'll watch something on TV. I'll watch a documentary that I wasn't intending to watch. It just happened to be across my screen. I'll sit back, grab a cup of tea and watch it. By the end of that, you're going to have learned at least one thing, right? And that's
Mm.
what I mean by sort of passive learning.
Mm.
You don't have to go through the experience yourself. You've heard it third hand through a storyteller, but now you are aware of something. But as I
Yeah.
said, I know of at least one person who doesn't even have that happen to them. So they're not even aware of stories being told. So they're not aware of experiences that other people have.
Mm. It's kind of fascinating why people choose that way, isn't it? I think people sometimes get, accustomed to certain habits, or they just choose not to. They're happy dealing with, it's like a route, isn't it? Happy going that route, and they're just
Yeah,
comfortable doing that. And
yeah.
anything else is just too much. But I would rather live a different way of, being informed and seeing the, new different
Well, you've proved
experiences.
that by
Yeah,
having your podcast, the people you talk to, near and far, far and wide,
yeah,
you are learning through the storytelling. You're expanding your own mind, your own experiences through the storytelling, which is why I think storytelling is so important.
yeah,
Listening to other
definitely.
people's stories, listening to podcasts, reading books, watching documentaries, even just watching fiction, because fiction is a form of storytelling, and there has to be a kernel of truth in that fiction storytelling. Otherwise, humans couldn't tell a story without having something factual to base it upon anyway. So you're always learning. But as I said, I know at least one person who doesn't get involved in any of that. And when I met them, I was really gobsmacked.
Mm. Yeah, I
And as I
think
said,
I,
it both irritated me, made me sad, and made me jealous because it then made me think, as I then dwell on these things for a little while afterwards. And I thought about the only people who I could relate that to, who I don't know personally, and is only through storytelling, is the Amish Society in the US. I also think there are spin-offs in other countries, but let's focus on Amish because I've seen films of the Amish, and I thought it must be like that. You live in your own community. There's almost probably no technology, so their lives are completely different to ours, and they're very happy to live that life. They don't have access to the things that we have access to: news, I don't know, community, comedy, knowing what's going on with the economy. They have no access to that, and they have no desire to have access to that. And that conjures up all kinds of feelings in me. Some of me, sometimes, you get that feeling like I've had enough of the world. Maybe I'll just go run away and join the Amish. Uh, but then you worry. You think, but is it the right? Are they living the right way? Is it the right way to
mm.
be as a human being on the planet Earth? Should we not try and be one step ahead and know what's going on? I don't know.
It's a double-edged sword, though, isn't
It
it? Because it
is.
seems quite peaceful, but at the same time, you kind of like a hermit almost, and we're not really designed, I think, to be
I
like
think
that
you're
long.
right, and I think that the issue is, certainly for people like you and me and the rest of us, is that we couldn't go and live like that after having lived the life we've
Yeah.
lived.
Mm.
People who are brought up, grown as children, infants and children are grown into that. They know nothing different, and I think that's perfect for them.
Mm. Yeah. Because then they're accustomed to it, aren't they? And I think,
Exactly.
we was talking at, I'll go into this in a minute, but you was talking about that video with the Mike Tyson quote and not having a plan. And I think like people think things are going accustomed to being everything so all rosy rosy. And
Yeah.
you talk about like driving.
Yeah.
I was driving to my great aunt's funeral with my dad from Cornwall down to London in Twickenham, and I'm coming down the motorway. I've only driven to London. I think yeah, one time before I drove my brother to an event in the O2, and the sat nav took me through um, central London during rush hour,
Yeah.
and I had no idea my sat nav was going to take me through fucking central London during rush hour. And like you said, I had a plan. I knew I had to get to London, knew I had to get to the hotel, but I didn't realize it would take me right through the middle,
Yeah.
and it was absolutely nuts. And I was way out my depth. I was way out my comfort zone. I was shitting myself. I was just winging it. Do you know what I mean? Literally, I'm like
Yeah.
winging it, and I managed to get there, no problems, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I probably lost like a stone in sweat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I do know
And
exactly what you mean.
but I felt good because I was like, I've done that.
Yeah.
I've achieved that in a weird positive way.
I'm with you all the way there. Totally with you. But
And
there are
you've
people
driven through
who
London, haven't
I,
you?
it's what I do. It's part of my job. I live a stone's throw from Harrods.
Yeah,
So yeah, I totally feel you on that one. My point was that you went with it. There are people who look at the sat nav, look at the map, and go, "I'm not doing that. I'll go all the way around on the M25 and I'll find another way in." Um, I think it's good for people just to jump in there and see what it's like. Why not?
yeah. It it definitely throws you.
If
It's
you've
like
got the time, if you've got no particular time frame or you've got no
yeah,
specific, that's different. I mean, if you've got to be there at some point during the day and you think, well, yeah, it says it's the shortest route, but it may be heavy on traffic. Well, why don't you try it? And you
yeah.
did it.
And I did it, and it worked out all
Yeah.
right. But I we were talking about plans and journeys and things we
Well,
think
and
we've
other
got to
people
plan.
having an effect on you.
Yeah.
As you said, London. I mean, people don't obey rules, right? It's a
It,
city.
it,
They don't obey rules in any
if there's a
city.
gap, you take it. That's
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. This is what I mean. It's like you can't just say, oh, everything will be all right in life. Just keep going. Someone's going to hit you if you have that attitude. You have got to be alert. I'm not saying you've got to
mm,
be negative. Just be
no,
alert. Just be aware.
yeah,
But do not just drive like everything's going to be great. You know,
yeah.
unicorns and rainbows. You're going to have a nasty surprise.
I did that last time I drove to London. I was driving to my ground's funeral, my dad, and my dad's a Scouser, so he was talking like really a lot next to me, and I think I was just blindsided by him talking a lot, and I was a lot going on coming off the motorway, and I had to turn right. My sat nav said turn right, so I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm following the sat nav." And within 5 seconds, a police car pulled me over, and I didn't look around or stop, take a minute to think, and there was a
Yeah.
little tiny little sign saying no right hand turn,
Yeah.
and he pulled me
Off.
over, and he was
Yeah.
like. He was like, you know how many people have died on that road? And I was like, oh mate, I've just come from like Cornwall off the motorway. And he read me my rights and like fined me like 75 quid.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'll
See,
remember
and see,
next time.
this is actually a very good example of, well, but you could get people who are going, yeah, but I explained to him I've come from Cornwall and I was really nice to him. Why did he behave that way? You've got to be alert to that fact that this is real life and other people are not going to behave the way, one, you expect them to, and two, the way that you have necessarily treated them. Just because you are nice to them doesn't mean they have to be nice to you. That is life. Book one, chapter one, page one, paragraph one, sentence one. That is life. People do not treat you the way you treat them necessarily. Most people will. You're going to get a lot of people that won't. And you just have to, as soon as you learn that fact, it's not being pessimistic, it's simply being alert to that fact and not living this sort of cartoon-esque life, this Charlie Brown, Snoopy cartoon life. Oh, if I go through life all whistling and smiley, everybody else is going to be whistling and smiley. They are not. Human beings just aren't built that way. And it just irritates me when I look on any of the social media like Pinterest or TikTok, and you get these sort of what I call toxic positivity gurus who are constantly trying to tell people it's going to be all right. Put a smile on your face. Life is beautiful. And I just want to say, yes, it is, but I just want you to tell people that it's not 100% beautiful. I want people to be alert. I want them to be aware. I don't want people to be blindsided. That's it. You don't, going swimming in the sea is wonderful. But if you're not alert to what a riptide is,
Mm.
it could be the end of your life. Oh, don't be negative. Don't be pessimistic. You have to know these things. I'm not being pessimistic and I'm not being negative. I will still go swimming in the sea despite knowing that there's a riptide out there, as long as I've looked and I couldn't see one at the time.
Mm.
And then I can enjoy myself more because I've already done the research.
Yeah.
And that's the point that I'm trying to get across with a lot of these sort of gurus, coaches, whatever you want to call them, who then put this sort of material out there. I don't feel that they're warning people, their potential followers and their potential clients, to the full gradient of life.
Mm.
It's lovely telling people, beach is lovely, the sea is lovely, the forest is lovely. Fine, it is. Be aware of the dangers and you'll enjoy it even more. It's
Definitely.
balance. It's just balance. That's all I look for in life.
I completely agree. And what when you're talking about, it reminds me when you go on holiday, or if you go somewhere you're not familiar with. All
Yes.
right, you're on holiday, you feel great, you're in a different place. You might be with your partner or something. You're in a nice place. It's warm, whatever. But there's going to be people there who want to rob you. There's going to be people there
Yes.
who are going to take your money. There's
Correct.
scammers. Um, and you have to do your research or you have to be aware of it. I went
Yeah.
to stay with my girlfriend and th we went through a place, I can't remember where it is, like a cathedral, it was like a courtyard. And I could tell straight away where the scams were. And there were
Yeah.
people dressed up in the white faces and they're putting
Yeah.
balloons over people,
Yeah.
taking a picture, and then going, can we have some money?
Yeah.
But you could see people who were just gliding through and just getting snatched.
Yeah.
And I remember crossing the road and I was on my phone, but I was aware of what was going on around me.
Yes.
And I could see a person in the corner of my eye kind of zigzag walking backwards to try and but because I was aware,
Yes.
and
Exactly.
I know there's people out there like that. But like you
It's
say,
not
if you're
being
not,
negative. It's
no,
not being pessimistic. It's being alert to life. And once you're alert to life and you're alert to the ways of life, and when we say life, we talk about human nature, society at large, you can then enjoy it. You can then relax in the places you're supposed to relax in and be slightly more alert in the places you should be more alert. And my anger was the fact that if people are listening to sort of just banal, purely positive messages on their social media, then the same people who are susceptible to behaving completely innocently and ignorantly in places that they're going to get hurt and attacked. And I don't want that for
mm,
anybody.
yeah, yeah,
But you see,
definitely,
when you write something like that in response to someone who's written something very, very positive, they get very angry.
mm,
They don't like you to shatter their illusion.
yeah. And like you said to begin with, like using about like the quotes and stuff on LinkedIn or social media, like you said, like trust the process. And we were saying, you mentioned off air, you saw that. And I replied to you and said, it's not a single cut answer for that.
Yeah, I guess I was just. I mean, this is great that you've led on into that. I think it's a perfect avenue. It's one of those for me. Again, it's just my opinion. It's just my feeling. Is that some of these things are very empty. They they don't offer me a solution to a problem. For someone to say, just trust in the process. Um, Me being me, I want to know, well, what process are we talking about? Are we talking about the world's life, my life, your life? What's the process of job hunting, the process of me going to work, the process of me being married and having kids? What process am I trusting in? And then my brain starts working even further and harder. So if I just trust in it, just trust sounds like just relax in it. Trust the process. The process has got you. But it hasn't. We've just been discussing 2 minutes ago. You have to be alert. You've got to alter or change your behavior in certain places around certain people because that's part and parcel of life. So when I hear trust in the process, that for me doesn't mean a goddamn thing. I don't know what that means. And I hear it spoken too much. And I think people just like the sound of it. I find a lot of people go, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, just trust in the process. And I think you don't really know what you're saying because you haven't understood what that person who uttered it was saying. And they themselves don't know what they were saying. They just said it because it sounds really cool. It sounds lovely. Just trust in the process. Everything's going to be all right. Guess what? It really isn't. You have to try and make it all right. And I do stress the word try, small word, very important. You have to try as best as you can to make your life all right. It may not work out. Things happen, as we are saying, driving, someone will just hit you. It's not your fault, it's the other person's fault. Disease, illness, it just hits you. You can eat a healthy life, healthy diet, live a very healthy lifestyle. You, unfortunately, as they tell us now, 1 in 2 of us is going to get cancer. Life's going to happen to you. No point just trusting in any process as far as I can see, because I don't know what that means. I'm not trusting in anything except I know how the world is. I know, or I believe I know as much as I need to know about human behavior. And I trust in myself to try and navigate as best as I can those two things. I will eat healthy, but I won't be surprised if I get cancer. That's the other thing. I'm not being negative or pessimistic. That's what I tried to say back on that TikTok video. Not being pessimistic, not being negative. I will still eat healthy because I think it is the right thing to do. Nevertheless, I am prepared for me still to get a terrible illness. That's life. I won't be one of these people go, oh my God. I mean, my mother used to be a bit like that. Oh my God, why, how did that person, get leukemia or get, they were so fit and healthy? Because that's life. Shit happens, as they commonly say.
Mm.
These are things that are completely out of our control.
Mm.
And other
Yeah,
people are out of our control, by and large.
yeah, exactly. And I think, reflect on what you said. Yeah, I think, like you said, when you think about life, there's lots of things out of our control, and I think you have to be realistic, don't you? And you have to,
That's exactly what I mean. Be a realist, be aware, and then you can be realistic. I'm just upset with people who are pushing an agenda where they're just trying to get their followers to just believe that everything is unicorns and rainbows. And I think
mm,
that's very dangerous.
yeah, it's almost like a cult, really, isn't it?
Yes. Oh my God, that's a very good way of putting it. And there's a lot of that going on right now. We see it in politics, we see it in religion, we see it in little tribal groups everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of cultish behavior happening at the moment, and it's actually quite worrying.
Yeah, I think that all kind of happened. I think, well, it's always been about, but I think it's kind of we saw most of that. I think during COVID,
Yes,
and
you're right. I
you
think that's
know,
where it sort of re-emerged.
because I remember being in a job, not my previous job, but the one before that. And I remember being, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, I was kind of ganged up on against by the manager because he was quizzing, am I going to get vaccinated? And I felt like I was discriminated because I, at the time, chose not to.
Yeah,
And it's nothing to do with your manager anyway. We choose to do medically and stuff. But yeah, I think with trusting the process, I think if you pull apart the work, I mean, I've said it before. I know I've been guilty of saying it, but the way what ticks off in my brain with trust the process, it depends what you apply it to, and
yeah,
you've got to actually look at is there a process to for I'm going into detail. For example, losing weight.
yeah,
To a degree, there is. You have to really break it down, though. The word trust the process. If people say trust the process, like you said, what do you mean about that when you think
yeah,
about it?
yeah,
It's like in my head, that makes sense to me for working out and going to the gym. There's a process to losing weight. There's a process to
Oh,
know,
I get it. So it means trust the
steps,
routine of the
routine and the
process.
steps. Yeah.
In that
So
case, I completely get that.
yeah, that's what makes sense to me when I think trust
Like when people
process,
go to
because
the
you,
gym and after like maybe 4 weeks and they go, I'm not seeing any results. And you go, just keep going.
yeah,
Trust the process in that regard. That I have no problem with. Completely get it. It's when people use it for the larger
the
life.
larger spectrum. Yeah,
And I'm like,
because
please.
in my, I won't go into too much detail, but in my day job, I said to you on a phone call, I work with, you know, people who are
Yeah,
rough
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sleeper
yeah,
homeless,
yeah.
and sometimes the process is fucking long. And
Yes.
I'm not going to go into like detail, but if people are applying for housing or they're trying to get, somewhere,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people, and the process might take 8 months. It might
yeah.
take, a year, it might take 4
Correct.
weeks. So like I said, that doesn't really, you can't say trust the process really, because people might not have
No.
any trust in it after 5 months of not, do you know what I mean?
Good
So
point. Good point. And also you look at shall we say success stories. You see business people talking, telling you about a little bit of biography about their lives. These are people who didn't trust in the process. They got fed up with the process and they decided to circumnavigate it. They went their own way. They did something random. They didn't follow a process particularly. Maybe their own process in their own heads, but I mean, generally speaking, they didn't follow a process.
but I think as well, I think this, I'll re-relate well together is I feel like I haven't followed the normal process. I don't think you follow the normal process of
Oh, for sure. Neither
society.
of us have. Neither of us have.
And I remember like, what was it to you, like washing dishes and then doing sales. Do you know what I mean? Just trying different jobs out. And I know you tried different jobs out.
I'm the
And,
same as
and
you in that
that's
regard,
perfectly
Adam.
fine.
Absolutely. I'm very happy I did all those things.
Yeah.
I don't look back on my life and ever consider, wrongly or rightly, that I failed. I was, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. To some regards, even now, I potentially still don't. I've got a clearer idea, but 30, 20, 10 years ago, I didn't have a real clue where I fit in on this planet, um, what sort of job I could or should be looking for. And I think certainly back in those days, I was totally um, sort of taught, I'll say taught by not only my family, but my peers, that money should be the only thing on my mind and just work for money and work for as much money as you can. And that didn't sit well with me. It's just not the way I operate. My brain is different, and I can't just do something purely for the money. I've got to enjoy it, and more than that, or in addition to that, I've got to see that there is a point to what I'm doing. And if there's no point, I find it really hard to to do the job. If I don't see the point in it, selling something, for example, I could not sell anything unless I really believed in the product. I mean, I've struggled to find something I really believe in, looking around my room, that I could then sell to you or anybody else. I could find flaws in everything I've ever bought. So I would struggle to sell that same product to you and not tell you the truth about it. So sales was never, I tried sales. I did it for a little while. Well, it just was not me. That's how I realized.
I'm sure you could sell a nice plant pot in the background.
That one,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you know what? It had a hole in it. True
Yeah.
story. I could actually lift it up and show you to it. So it's got a hole in the bottom because it's actually an outdoor garden pot.
Yeah.
So I had to go to Robert Dias down the road, buy
Yeah.
some polyfill, and I filled in the hole.
Oh, bang, there you go.
So there you go. There's a flaw in it, but I
There's a
fixed the flaw.
yeah. You you can sell that. You can sell it
I can sell
if
that.
people get a plant pot. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how to,
That's it.
but it's like if you know what. I think if you love the product, you have a passion about it, or there's some flair. Do you know what I mean? And I think you got to know what the product is, isn't it? You see it on Dragon's Den, and you see people talking about stuff,
Yeah.
and then have a Scooby Doo. But yeah, but it's like you said,
But
people.
I feel everything's been invented. And I think
Mm,
that now all you're seeing, apart from AI, obviously, but I think
mm,
all that we've seen in the last sort of, shall we say, 10 years is just a polishing up or a slight update of the product that's already been invented 10, 15, 20 years ago.
mm.
I really struggle to imagine that there's anything left to invent unless it's time travel or something like that. Um, I don't know. But yeah, I'm going way off topic here.
No,
You're
that's all
talking
right.
about all the different jobs that we've done in our lives because we were looking for something um, that we believed in. I couldn't have believed if someone had told me 20 years ago, trust in the process. I would have been like, you what? What
Mm,
process? I'm not part of any process. I went to
yeah.
school, had trouble at school, came out of school, didn't know what I wanted to do, tried 100 jobs, liked one of them, stuck with that, but always then discovered that I had a passion for something else. You're getting older. Can you switch jobs as you get older later in life? Do I trust in the process or do I make moves? Do I
Mm,
chance my arm? Do I take risks? I took risks. They won't pay off for everybody. I always tell
mm.
people don't follow my pattern. You can use what I tell you as inspiration, but for God's sake, don't say, oh, he did that next, so I'm going to do that next. No, 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 no. It may not work for you.
Yeah,
Everybody's
definitely.
different.
No, I agree with that, and I think, like you said, everyone's different. Everyone's got their own paths, haven't
Well,
they?
that's
And
the
so you
danger
can
again,
take
going back,
this.
right back. If I take it right back to the problem I have with some people who are gurus and they think that they're going to show people the way and teach them the way. And I always say that's fine, that's good if you're supporting that person on their journey
Mm,
and not telling them to follow what you have done necessarily. I would
mm.
never, I certainly hope I don't give people advice because I'm a horrible person to give advice. My life has been all over the place. I enjoy my life now. I feel I've pretty much arrived late in the day, but better late than never. But I would never tell anybody do what I
Yeah.
did. I'd say run away, do something completely different to what I did because it's been. I'm lucky. I've got through it, so I can laugh about it now. But there was every possibility that I still would be unemployed, out of pocket, unhappy. It's like the film Sliding Doors. There could have been two different paths, two different worlds. One where I made it, one where I didn't make it.
Mm.
And that's why it could be the smallest thing in your life, the smallest change you make, smallest thing that you miss, smallest thing you remember, and that can have all the impact on your future. And
Yeah,
then it
definitely.
may, and then just to add on to that, in case someone goes, "Oh, but you said it's not down to you," and also it could be someone else doing something to you. You could be crossing the road, you could be hit by a bicycle. I've been hit by a bicycle once crossing the road.
I can believe
I
that in London.
I hurt like a mother. I couldn't walk for I think 2 weeks. My leg just swelled up like that was a bicycle hit me, not a car. It's a bicycle. I couldn't walk for 2 weeks.
Jeez.
So yeah, anything can happen to you.
That's it. And I think, like you said, and I think we also reflecting what you said, you mentioned like, your life and the things you've done. And I think like you said, you've arrived and you feel like you've landed. And I think from all those things that you've experienced and what, in your life experiences and jobs, you've got all this life experience. And I think that's, molds, who you are, doesn't it? And I think you've got that perspective based on that, which is
I feel you're absolutely right, Adam. And I always say I know a lot of people, especially successful people, generally like to say it all comes down to hard work and the right decision making. Um, for me, my life wasn't like that. It was hard work, poor decision making, and luck. Um, the career I currently do, which I won't go into, but it's in the
yeah.
realm of hospitality, um, has featured all those things that you've just mentioned 30 seconds ago. So because I've been through the mill, so to speak, and a whole plethora of things, all kinds of crazy things. I now use those experiences to do the job I currently do. If I hadn't had that journey, I couldn't do the job I currently do. The job I currently do, I'm basically asked to do anything that I'm asked to do. And because I've got all this experience, this life experience from a crazy life I had before, I can just use that as a huge toy box. And I go and they
Mm,
go, oh, they need me to do that. I remember I used to do that 20 years ago. I remember how that's done. And I thank my lucky stars that I have that treasure chest of
mm,
experiences that I can use to make me succeed at the job I currently do.
mm,
I know people who do the job I do, who haven't had the life experiences I've had. We form part of a group online, and they're constantly asking questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? I've no idea how to do this. I've been asked to do this. And we help each other. But I always think, thank God I'm never one of those people, very rarely someone who ever needs to ask, because I, at some point, have done it. I may be rusty, I may have forgotten a few steps, but I generally know how to do the job. And that's why I always say I'm lucky that my present job is the sum total of everything
mm,
I did before that I didn't
mm.
know that I wanted to do.
And that's great what you're doing, and that you're able to draw from that experience, your experiences, and you've got that treasure chest to draw from to apply to what you're doing. And I think, like you said, it's and I learned that in hospitality as well. You do certain things, and you think, well, I'm drawing from that experience, and I've taken from that, and there's a lot of communication and listening. Um, and you pull, like you said, you're pulling from all these avenues, and some people might not have that avenue because they've not had those experiences and they've not had, you know, that that luck maybe to be in those places. And so, like you said, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
luck. And it's so.
Absolutely.
Do you see it as
Absolutely.
like? Do you see it as like? When you throw like a. I'm just using an example. When you throw like
Yeah.
a stone in like the water and you see the ripples, it's a bit like that, isn't it? Sometimes in life, you do something and then it leads on to.
I think that is life. I don't even
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
like life. I think that is life. Everything we do as human beings on this planet, everything has an effect on something or someone. We can't exist as human beings without us having an effect, positive, sometimes negative, on another person or on an event of things that are going to happen. Um, and I think it's important that everybody comes to understand that as quickly as possible. I think it's something that should be taught in schools. I mean, it's so easy. You just said it. It takes 60 seconds. We are the stones that make ripples, and those ripples can affect other people. Those ripples make waves. Those waves can cause problems for some people, or they may be waves that other people can surf on. That's life. You've got to try and make the best of the situation, and if you can't make the best of it, then you've got to survive it.
yeah, definitely. Because I'm sure I told you what happened to me as a teenager. I'm not going to go on about it. It's not about me. But, I had that accident where I fell off the roof and I like, okay,
Yes, yes, I remember you telling me
and
that.
I just think, like that's like that, like the ripple, like the stone in the wall. I don't know now, being 30, what I'd be doing if that hadn't have happened, or if I would have done the podcast. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Only thing I would say to you would be stop. Don't even think about that.
Yeah,
Don't think about what if. Don't go back
no, no, no,
because
no, no.
that's
But
a
it's
rabbit
those rip.
hole that you do
Yeah,
not need
yeah.
to go down.
And
But
well,
I know what you mean. Generally
from
speaking,
the
can
ripples
you
forward
imagine if it didn't
anyway.
happen, you'd be a different person?
Yeah, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it's like the ripples, isn't it? And I think from that event, it's allowed me, I've used that experience and what I went through to, do you know what I mean, help other people
Yeah,
and see situations differently. And like you said, it's
yeah,
those experience that you're drawing from you're drawing from your treasure chest. I'm using
yeah,
my treasure chest to do what I do. Do you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
And that and
Exactly.
that's how I think, what we should be doing, isn't it? Using your experience to
Totally. And that's another reason why I would say to people, don't be completely despondent or depressed about the situation that you may find yourself in right now. If
hmm,
you're not happy about the situation you're in right now, at some point further down the line, you're going to be able to use the experience that you are currently going through right now. You're going to be able to use that as power, energy, or something similar. You're going to be able to mine that experience and use it to your future advantage. You can't see it now. I couldn't see it. If you asked me, 20 years ago, and I'm toiling away on a shop floor, stacking shelves, how is this going to help me in my future life? But I used to get up at 3:30 in the morning to be at the shop at 4 o'clock in the morning to open the shop store. That taught me something. And I'm not a morning person, by the way. I hate mornings. I'm a night person all day long. I was born at night. I'm sure it's got something to do with it. I love the night. I hate mornings. But I was forced, if I wanted a job, if I wanted to pay for my car or pay for the roof over my head, my rent, I had to get a job. And the only job that was available to me at that moment was, well, you've got to be at work at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I had to force myself to become a morning person. Not, I will never be a morning person, but I just had to force myself to get up at a ridiculous hour of the day just to survive. That's taught me something now. That's taught me resilience. It's taught me patience. It's taught me discipline. Going to bed early when I didn't want to. I don't want to go to bed at 8:30 at night. 8:30, I'm just getting started. But back in those days, I had to go to bed at 8:30 in order to be up at 3:30. It taught me a lot. I didn't know I was being taught at the time. I was grumpy. I was unhappy. I was moody. I was irritable. I don't want to do this. But looking back, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be the person I am today that's able to do that. Sometimes I'm asked, like recently, I was asked to take someone to the airport at 5 a.m. Not a problem. I know that I have to be disciplined, go to bed early the night before, and I just do it because I go to my treasure chest of experiences and think, remember, you used to do that? You can do it again.
hmm. Yeah, definitely. There's something about that, isn't there? Getting up early and because that's a completely because you have your own routine, don't you? And then it's like, okay, I've got to shift and pivot and then
We
apply
should
myself
do. I
to
mean, you're not
this.
wrong there, and I'll never argue with you. I'll support you all the way on that. I believe that human beings have a natural rhythm, circadian rhythm, I believe it's scientifically called, and we should really adhere to that. Unfortunately, the lives that we lead, modern day living, tells us we have to forget all that and just go where the money dictates us to.
Hmm.
But really, it's not really healthy for us.
Yeah. But if you
I
can
feel sorry
pivot,
for all the ship workers. I mean, all the people who work at the airport, hospitality, emergency
yeah.
services, military. This is part of this is sort of chapter one. If you're going to do this kind of work, you've got to be used to getting up at all silly hours of the day and night at a moment's
No,
notice. I think it's really
I
good.
can.
I think they should almost preach it in schools or colleges at least when children are getting a bit older and thinking about future jobs. Is you're going to spend some time in hospitality. You're going to spend some time alongside emergency services, and you're going to see what real life is about for some
Hmm.
people. It may not be you. You may end up doing a 9 to 5. Good for you. But if you don't know how other people live, you will not really, going right back to the beginning of our conversation on this video. Like I said, people I know who live in a bubble and don't know how the other half live. They have got no clue. I think it's imperative that people do know. I think people
Hmm.
need to know, wow, this person does this, this person gets up at this hour. I mean, bakers do that. That's something you learn as a
Oh,
child.
that's
And I
wild.
think you know about that because I think your family were involved in that, weren't they? Or your dad was, or somebody was.
My dad's a chef. He's been a
Yeah.
chef pretty much all of his life.
But I mean, he has to get up at silly hours to go and buy the fruit and veg, potentially
Yeah,
freshly
yeah, yeah.
from the importers. I mean, it's the way of the world, and there are people who don't know that. They go to a restaurant They don't know the chef who's just cooked them their meal has been up since
Mm.
3 in the morning. They think he probably rocked up at 9 a.m., went to Tesco's, got the ingredients, and just cut them up and
Yeah,
boiled them. I'm sure
yeah.
there are people that really, unfortunately, do things like that.
It is pretty wild. I think that's the thing that opens up my eyes. And when you go to, I don't know, you get up at a different time. You know, if you go out, you see things you don't necessarily see during later in the day. You know, you get up a bit
Yeah,
early, little tiny things, and
yeah,
it makes you think, and you see it, like, you know, dustbin men taking things out,
yes,
street, you know, little. I went
yes,
to Tesco really early in the morning. I can't remember why. And there was a guy who was a cleaner, and he was cleaning all the conveyor belts, and
yeah,
he was cleaning certain things, and I was like, I know this is a really weird example, but I was like, well, you know, he's got to do that job because otherwise they'd be dirty, and people don't see
exactly.
certain things at certain times. I think it's important,
Yeah,
like you said with the baker, when I worked in a hotel in Cornwall somewhere, I had to get the bread from the bakery really early. And there was this guy, and he was running around, and like like he's probably done it a long time, so his back had kind of curved over, but he was grabbing the bread and everything else. And I was thinking, God, I put this bread out in the morning. I didn't realize that that poor guy is running around to get this bread, you know, made that I was
yeah,
serving to people.
yeah. There's another world behind the world
Yeah.
that we are aware of, that we know about.
Hmm.
And more often than not, we don't know enough about it, which is why I think it's so important. And I treasure the fact that we have the sort of television we have in our country. We have documentaries behind the scenes. We can
Hmm.
learn so much. Well, the internet, YouTube, you can go on YouTube and learn anything and learn about other people, other cultures, other societies. I just think it's so important. And I feel sorry for people and you know, it's a little angry with people who don't take the time just to even dip in and see how their community, their society, their country is made up,
Hmm.
how it's built.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think people see life through a certain lens, and there's all different things happening. I think you have to be aware of that. You know, you have to be informed, don't
That's it.
you?
You don't have to know it inside out. I'm not
No,
saying that,
no,
but just to be
no.
aware of it. I look. I
Aware
mean,
of it, yeah.
on my Google front page on my phone every morning, I just scan the headlines. I don't
Mm, mm,
necessarily read the whole story, but I know roughly what roughly is going on in the
mm,
world because I've read the headlines. And the headlines have
mm.
told me roughly what I need to know.
What that brings me on to is you was talking about different cultures and like, you know, why we was talking earlier, like I live in Cornwall currently, but I grew up in Nottingham in East Midlands and I was there for like 20 odd years. And then, well, 18, 19 years, and I moved down here. And like you said, it's still part of the mainland, you know, the island that we're on, but it's still a different culture, different way of life. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you found that traveling as well, going different places.
absolutely. I think that the point that I was raising with you before we went live on air was the fact that we live in such a tiny country. The country itself is based on an island, incredibly small, and yet we have such vastly different cultures. Um, I mean, on the surface, we all speak the same language, and we all have a Tesco's near us, and all the rest of it. But underneath that, there is a subculture where people, as you said, Cornwall, that you are now experienced in, has a subculture that is completely different to the rest of mainland England. Wales is another one. It's what hour and a half from where I am right now, 2 hours. I don't know what language. I mean, I know the language that they speak, but I don't understand their language. I don't know anything about them, their history. I feel embarrassed about that. They're a part of the same country as me, but I don't know anything. I'm aware that they exist. I'm aware that they have a different culture. It's amazing. We live on this island, and we have such hugely well. First of all, we've got a gap of knowledge, massive knowledge gap. And secondly, that we are in this day and age, 21st century, 2024, and we are so separate in many ways. There's that border, and past that border, in their minds and in their hearts, they are very different people. And I find that incredible sometimes. And then it blows my mind. That's just one country. We've got an entire planet like that.
Mm,
We're all so similar on the outside, but on the inside, we're incredibly different. And that's just culture. Then on the
mm,
inside, even further, as individuals, we're completely different.
mm,
Our minds, our emotions, our hearts, our thoughts, our desires, the way we behave, the way we are either taught to behave or the way our brains were wired at birth. We are different. It's incredible. And we're on this one planet circling the earth. And you think, I don't really, I'm now really thinking about whether we are alone in the universe, as to whether I don't think there are aliens. I think the aliens are us,
mm,
in a sense. We are aliens to each other.
mm.
The hardest thing is for us to understand and communicate with each other as human beings.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
And I think, why are we harp on about it? We love it. We love the idea of it. Well, there could be someone on the planet and we're going to have, communicate. If we can't communicate as the same species, what chance do you think we've got communicating with a completely different one? Huh?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that brings us back to what we were talking about off air before, which is about communication
Mm,
and
yeah,
how hard it is to communicate sometimes between humans. I now have a massive problem with it.
yeah, it is fascinating, all of what you just said. And I think like when you talk about Wales and different cultures, I experienced that because my mate had his stag in Wrexham in Wales, or just out from Wrexham in a small little village. And you had Wrexham, I think about half an hour, 40 minutes away, and then it was in a small village. And I felt that. And I felt really strange because I felt like we were still in the UK, but I felt like I was in a different country. And the people were different. And we we stayed in like this pub and they had like a hostel above it. And it was like,
Okay.
bog standard, like really basic.
Yeah.
And it's small little villages are quite clicky sometimes, and it was just like that. And the locals are talking to us, and these guys are like, "Why have you come here for a stag? Like, what are you doing?" And like just having a laugh with us. But it's like it's a different culture. They had like travelers. I can say that word. I think
Yeah.
it's acceptable. They had travelers who had like a horse and cart, and they
Yeah.
were the guy was saying, "Oh, that's the local taxi." If you want, he'll give him a five and he'll take you down the street or something. He'll take you
Yeah.
to where you want to go. Little things like that. Um, it just opens your eyes, when you go different places. And like you said, that's still part of the UK. And then you go into like, human behavior and why people do what they do and think how they think. And I've noticed that, like living in Cornwall, I feel different because I grew up in a city, different culture. Had to worry about where my keys were, doors being locked, watch where you walk, and like you got to think that everywhere. But like you said, there's different cultures, different paces of life, isn't there? Different people.
It's it's for us, for people like us that are going to a different country or a different culture, even if it's across the border or across the sea. It's for us to then have patience and for us to have an open mind.
Yes.
I suffered huge culture shock. And I think that's how I met you, was just after I came back from South America after living
Mm,
there for 3 years.
yeah, yeah.
And I can tell you my first year there was rough. And it wasn't rough because it was South America, it was rough because it was me. And I found it very hard to acclimatize. Can't blame them. I am to blame for my first year being horrible and for me hating almost an entire year of my stay there because I didn't have patience. I was completely entrenched into my behavior that I'm used to behaving like in England. And I just couldn't get with the program, if you will. I couldn't switch. I couldn't let go. I couldn't open my mind and say, well, this is how they behave here. So go with the flow. I couldn't do that for almost a year. And I hated it. And I was doing nothing but criticizing. This is stupid. Why do you do that? We don't do that in England. And I was just a horrible, horrible person for almost a year because I couldn't change my brain. Obviously, I did. I got to a point where I had to, or I was going to go insane or get the first flight out of there. And I did. I acclimatized. I just stopped criticizing. I managed to switch this, the switch in your brain that as soon as you get that desire to criticize or be horrible and arrogant and cruel, I just switched it off and said, no, don't do that. Don't say that. Just enjoy it. Enjoy in your eyes, the stupidity of what they're doing and just enjoy it. Relax. You're not going to change them. There's a million of them and one of you. Who do you think's going to win? So when I'm rational with myself, when I'm stoic with myself, when I talk to myself and have a little argument with myself, I can then reach a state of being where I am a better human being. But I understand what you mean. You feel completely out of sorts. You feel completely out of place. Different culture, different language, different people, different ways of doing things. And it is tough. It's
Mm,
really tough. It's fine for a holiday. Don't get me wrong. I've holidayed all over the world. Never a
mm,
problem. When that holiday ceases to be a holiday and starts being a place where you live and work,
mm,
completely different mindset. Completely different mindset.
mm. Yeah, definitely. Because it it reminds me of what you were saying when you hated it to begin with. I'm not comparing.
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
comparing you
Yeah.
to this person, but there's that thing with Ricky Gervais where he sends his mate, Carl,
Yes.
to different
Yes. Yes. I know the
countries.
one. Yeah.
He's he's like got his Monster Munch and he's eating his crisps and he's like he doesn't want
I
to.
wasn't that bad.
No, no, I'm not saying that
I'm
bad,
joking.
but
I know.
you can see you can see he's like annoyed with like just you get accustomed to it, and
Yeah.
I remember I experienced that when I went to France once. I this girl I was with at the time, I went for a coffee and I was like, "Can I have oat milk?" She was like, "No, no, no, just have it as it is." And I was like, "What do you mean? I want back home. I have
What I want.
yeah."
I want what I want.
And I
Yeah.
was like annoyed because I was like, she was like, "No, just experience, what I mean, the culture and
Yeah.
what they give you." But
Yeah.
I struggled with that. I was like, "Why? What?" Yeah, that's a really
Totally.
small example.
No, but I mean, it still resonates with me. You want what you want because that's what you were used to. I was the same.
Yeah,
I was completely the same. But I was like,
but
why doesn't your society do this? We do this in England, and it makes sense. Why does your society not do that? Do you not see the sense in it? And I'd be talking to people, do you not see the sense in it? And they'd just laugh at me. They go, well, it works for us. Why do you have a
mm,
problem with it? And I'd be like, because the way my people do it, it's so much better. And then, people are like, you can't say things like that. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm trying to help them. And people
mm,
saying, you're not helping them. You're actually alienating yourself to them.
yeah,
And then I thought, well, who am I to tell other people that they're doing it wrong and that it doesn't work as well? If they're happy doing it that way, it's not really hindering them. Go with the flow. And
mm.
that's how I enjoyed the final 2 years of myself in South America. I just went native basically. Just went native. Just I basically mimicked being like them. I thought if I'm
Mm,
gonna enjoy
yeah,
myself,
yeah,
just be like them. How would they do this?
definitely. You
And
just
I enjoyed
remind me.
myself.
And I think you get to know yourself more, I think, like you said, and I think you get to find out who you are a bit more. And I think that's why they say traveling is important because you kind of think people find themselves, don't they? You learn things about yourself
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you think about things. And that's you talking about going living there reminded me of when I went to New York with my friend in 2019. We went in January, so it was freezing. That's probably why the flights were cheap, but
yeah,
it was
yeah. That'll be it.
Baltic. And I remember like my friend, we were walking and it's very fast paced, a bit like London. And people walk a certain way, a bit like London. People, so you have to just go, in the street. And we were like, after a while, we were just became a bit like them. We had to walk
Yeah, you
like
just walk
them.
fast. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
walk fast. And when we came home, we were like, why is everyone walking slow? Why is everyone like walking differently? Because we adapted to that. So it's interesting. Um, but yeah, traveling you get to know. I think like if you live in a different country. I've never lived in a different country. I've only had holidays in different countries, but I imagine you have to look within. You have to think about yourself, don't to a degree of.
yeah. Because I mean, imagine you're going to bed. Imagine like a simple thing is going to bed. It's not your bed on that first night that you're staying in that country. It's not your bed per se. It's not your room. You're under a different sky in a sense, and you feel very awkward. You feel very weird. You feel very alone. And I think that's what can make you can put you on the defensive. You don't feel you're at home yet. It's not your home yet. It could take you months, if not years. It took me a good 9 months to a year to feel comfortable to call it my home because it was my home for 3 years. But for the first year, I didn't feel I was home. I was on edge all the time. I just thought the country was weird. I thought the people were weird. Even though I'd holidayed there before and thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And I was like, yeah, moving there, living there is going to be easy. I love it there. Holidaying and living, two completely different things. Holiday, you're enjoying hospitality. People are being hospitable to you. Most of the time, you're getting fed and drinking for free, and you're only seeing the positives. Living there, you're getting the whole spectrum. Actually, much
Yeah,
less of the positives and a lot more of the negatives.
yeah, because it's like the reality session, doesn't it? Because you see more the longer you're there, and you have to
Yeah,
probably deal with more things rather than
yeah. That you
because
don't have to when you're on holiday. On
yeah, because you
holiday,
can
you've got money to,
choose.
to burn. You've already budgeted for like spending money on taxis and stuff like that, and all the rest of it. When you're living there, spending any money, wasting money on taxis. I'm taking public transport, which is a nightmare.
Mm,
All the rest of it, you're eating street food instead of eating a nice luxury restaurant.
mm,
Your life is different, very, very different.
mm.
But as you said, it's an experience that you can then plunder later from your little treasure chest when you need to later on in life.
Mm. Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
I am grateful. But
It's
as I
been,
said before, I'm just lucky to be where I am. I didn't really have too much of a hand in organizing where I ended up. It was a lot of luck.
mm. No, I think it's great what you're doing. I think it's great, you've had these experiences and you come out the other end and you know paving the way.
Yeah, I
And
just I'm happy to if anybody ever feels that they're quite low or things aren't going to work well for them, I'm
mm,
happy to be the sort of sounding board that says, well, look at what I went through. So if life can and luck can shine on me, then it can
mm,
shine on you.
mm,
Occasionally, I need little pick me ups as well. Like you hear things like I don't know if they're true, but you see them anywhere. Morgan Freeman didn't become a real actor till he was in his mid 40s or something like that. And you think, wow, okay, that's pretty good to know. So it could happen to anyone at any time. You don't have to have started in the industry at 18, say.
yeah, definitely. I
So
think
yeah,
that's always
I'm always
sorry.
happy to tell people don't think that your life is over just because you've hit 30 or just because you've hit 40.
Mm.
I'm 51 and I really feel my life has kicked off at 50. I really feel completely different at 50. I feel mentally as young as I did at age 20. Physically, some days I feel like I'm 70 because I haven't been
It's,
good to my I haven't been
yeah,
good to my body over the years.
yeah.
I've just treated it like absolute rubbish.
But this
I've
time of
thrown it
year is
around.
harder.
Yeah, it is. I've thrown
It's
my body
dark.
around. Yeah, but
It's
um, but as long as, like I said, I still eat healthy. I do some
mm,
exercise, and you just stay
there's a balance in it.
balancing. That's all it is. But yeah, life is. Here's another phrase, but I do agree with it mostly. Life is what you make of it. It is what you
Mm,
make it.
mm.
Um, Try to have a positive attitude, but don't be so positive that you blind yourself to the negative. Things out there will are designed to eat you, to destroy you, to kill you.
Mm, mm,
Be aware of that, but then focus on the positives. But don't
mm.
be blind to the negatives. I love the one about the sea. Just when you're about to dive into the sea, look to the riptides, know the danger, but then go and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, definitely. You got to be open to the reality of things, haven't you?
Yeah,
And not be blindsided and things like that. Because then that's when I think it's like if you're just cruising along and stuff like that, and you just that's cool, yeah, the sun's nice, da, 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 but if you're not aware of the distractions and
exactly,
other people or things, or
exactly. That's it. That's all I would say to people is, yeah, listen to all the lovely positive things that people put out there on social media, but just be aware that just a small degree to be aware of some of the little negatives, just so that you don't fall into those traps.
mm,
But by and large, try and be positive and be as happy as you can in whatever it is that you're doing.
yeah, definitely, yeah, I think
I
that's
think I
important.
think that's
That's
the only way I've made it in
yeah,
my life. I've done some shitty jobs, like I know you have as well. And
yeah,
if you just keep doing those jobs and muttering to yourself and telling yourself, God, I hate this job. Oh, I hate this. I've got to get out of here. You're going to have a shitty day, which will end up being a shitty
mm,
week.
mm,
And a shitty month will turn into a shitty year. And you will just do your mental health no favors. So try and see the lighter side of it in order to stay healthy up here. And for me, certainly, I found that my attitude has helped me get on in life. Somebody has liked my attitude, and I've been taken out of one position and put in another. Not because I've done anything special, just because of my attitude at the time when our paths crossed.
no, I love that.
Yeah, because I
I
don't
think
have any
that's
particular skill in terms of when people say what do you do, and I'm like I always struggle when people ask me what do you do for a living. I was like, well, I kind of do a lot of things and nothing. I don't do any one particular thing. I can't say I'm a painter. I'm a
yeah,
doctor. I'm a lawyer.
yeah,
I do a lot of stuff. I do whatever I'm asked to do, and out of that stuff that I'm asked to do, 90% I can actually do myself. 10% I have to subcontract out to someone I know. So I do a whole range of things. But yeah, so I don't big myself up saying I've got a particular skill. I just
oops, sorry for that noise.
I know how to get by. I know how to survive.
So I just knocked my mug,
I was
Adrian.
wondering what it was
So
that you did like
wait, I can't hear you one sec.
a
I'll pull my headphones out 1 minute. Cables
I
come
saw
out.
you do
Can't
a
hear a
cricket
word.
style catch there.
1 sec. There we go. So that's talking about, life always sometimes goes differently. Do you know what I mean? I didn't expect to knock my mug. There we go.
That's it. That's it, exactly.
But that's it. That's it there, and in the raw form, innit? But no, it's like you
It
said.
is.
You what I was going to lead on to what you were saying. You're like a Swiss Army knife. Do you know what I mean? You've got lots of different.
That's it. That's the best way I would describe myself. In fact, I've got a silhouette of a Swiss Army knife on my CV because that's the best way visually for people to
Yeah.
understand when they read my CV and they see that right at the top. And they usually ask me, oh, why is this at the top? And I go, read a little bit further down and you'll get it. You go, oh
mm,
yeah, I see. You've done this and you did that, then you did this, then you did that. It's all a bit random. Not much of it is linked. I'm like, nope. And I get asked, even in the job I'm currently in, are you going to stay in this job? And I'm like, that's the plan. And they're like, because you haven't really stayed in a lot of jobs for very long.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, things happened. Life happens.
mm,
But I said, I really love where I'm working right now. And my plan is a 10-year one,
mm,
no longer a 1 year or a 2 year or even a 5 year.
mm,
This is my 10-year plan right here. The job
yeah.
I'm currently doing. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome, Adrian. I'm glad, you're enjoying what you're doing and, you're excelling in that and you love what you're doing. And I love what you said about, work and because I talk to people and some people really close to me who struggle with this, and I know I've struggled with it. Not liking what you're doing, not knowing what you want to do, and sometimes people asking, "Oh, what are you going to be? What are you going to do?" And like you said, if you have that mindset of because you ultimately kind of attract what you're thinking, don't you? So if you're thinking, "Oh, this is crap," to a degree, you're
Yes.
gonna feel like crap, and then that
Yes.
can
I completely agree with that.
domino.
That's why I said try and be. No, I'm not going to tell people BS and say, oh, enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, you're not enjoying it. But try and lie to yourself even
Mm,
as much as lying to people around you. And if you want it to be a nice atmosphere in a job that you hate, be the atmosphere. Be
mm,
that which you
mm,
want to
mm.
create. They always say, what's the other saying? Be the good you want to see in other people, right?
Yeah,
Change that a little bit. Be the atmosphere that you wish your office had. Doesn't have it,
yeah.
you create it.
I found that with
And
bar work.
people notice it, people pick up on it. And they're
Mm,
like, oh, do you know what? I really like coming to work because you're here. And you're like, well, thank God for that because I hate being here. But now the fact you've said that, that's made me happy. Maybe we can both improve the atmosphere in here. And maybe it will become a job that I actually want to stay in.
mm,
Maybe. And if not, okay, so be it. But I'm still going to have this happy attitude while looking for another job.
yeah.
I've worked in warehouses. I've worked in huge industrial fridges, freezers, jobs that you just think, oh my God, getting up in the morning and thinking this is where I've got to go and spend 8 hours. And the only way that's got me through is just clowning about a little bit, doing the job, but still having a little bit of a clown about, making people laugh, telling some jokes, playing the fool occasionally, but always getting the job done, but having a little edge of let's lift the spirits in here. If not for them, for myself, for my own mental health. I don't want to go in there and it's all moody and everyone's got, down smiles on and grimaces. I want it to be a happy place. And if no one else is going to do it, then it's going to be down to me to have to make it a happy place.
Mm. It's me taking that accountability, isn't it? Making that choice for how you're feeling and not choosing not to pick the same stroke that everyone else is picking, if that makes sense, and being
Yeah, well,
unhappy
it's
instead.
making that decision
Yeah.
of looking, taking stock of where you are and thinking, I hate this job. Um, I'm worth more than this, which is fine to think that. If it's not your place, it's not your place. There's nothing wrong with feeling that. However, needs must, you're there to earn a crust because you've got to pay your bills. And if you're not finding that the atmosphere is right, or there's just not a great energy in the place you're working, don't wait for someone else to change that atmosphere. Maybe, oh, I wish
Mm,
my boss was better, or I wish my co-workers were better. You be
mm,
the person who you wish would arrive on the scene and change everything. Have an alter ego if you have to. Be a completely different Adam when you're at work. I mean, people do that anyway. They pretend, like they go to work and they pretend to be all professional. I mean, I know I've got friends like that. I'm like, you do what for a living? I know you.
mm.
How do you do that? I know the real you. I mean, they always say, well, we have to pretend. We put on a mask and we pretend that we're professional. We pretend we're this and that and the other. When we come home, we're who we really are. which is useless,
mm,
incompetent, lazy. I'm joking. But you know what I mean. If you can wear a mask at work in your normal job, you can put a different mask on, still wear a mask, but put on a happy one, put on a comedy one, put on a clown mask in order
mm.
to make you feel better. I'm not saying you're doing it for others, you're doing it for yourself. Try and enjoy uh, the work that you hate somehow. Find a
Yeah,
way.
I
Find
love
a
that.
way. It's the only way I
I,
can. If people, when people ask me, how did you do that? And how did you do that? And I say, honestly, I hated every minute of it. And I just had to do the job. But in little moments when I didn't have to concentrate too hard, I'd have a joke. I'd play the fool. I'd do something stupid with my uniform. I'd, do a do a funny accent, or I don't know, just be an idiot.
it's like improvising in that situation, isn't it? And I love what you said about, with work and trying to find something in it. And I found that when I love hospitality, I love that. But I think I reached a point where I was doing bar work and I was just ready for something different. And I did that for a long time. And I was
Yeah,
miserable. I wasn't happy. But I was like, part of me thought, you're meeting different people every day. It's not about you, it's about them having their experience. And if you was going there, you want the staff to be nice, do you know what I mean? And everything else. And I
yeah,
started taking an interest in different people because they were different every day. And then
yeah,
I was like, well, these people might be here for their birthday, they might be here for an anniversary. So how can I give them a good experience? So I kind of
yes,
flipped it around and I didn't feel miserable anymore after that, to a
yes,
degree.
yeah. You've got to stop thinking so much about yourself
Yeah.
and start thinking about the others around you. Either they're your clients, your guests, or your colleagues. And that helps, weirdly, your brain to stop dwelling on your own problems.
Mm,
Because the more you dwell on your problems, I hate this job, I hate what I'm doing, I hate my boss, I'm never going to get a promotion. The more you are dwelling on that, the more your mental health is getting affected, believe it or not.
mm.
That's not helping you get ahead. That's not helping you get promoted. That's not helping you write a better CV. That's just you feeling a little bit sorry for yourself. I'm not saying that's wrong. I do it. We all do it,
Mm.
but it's not helping yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can stop thinking about the situation you're in, you already know the situation you're in. You don't need to keep telling yourself that. You need to be telling yourself, let me make the best of this horrible situation that I'm in.
Mm.
If you're in prison, God forbid, you, I would hope that nobody would just walk around their four walls, especially if they're in solitary, that you wouldn't walk around those four walls just pacing, oh, bloody hell, I'm in prison. Oh my God. You just moping around. It's
Yeah.
not getting you out of that prison any quicker. In fact, it's making that sentence even longer. Find another perspective while you're in a shitty situation.
I
That's all
agree.
I'm saying. You know you're in prison. You don't need to keep telling yourself you're in prison.
Mm.
You don't need to keep moaning about it to yourself, certainly
Mm.
not to other people if they don't want to hear it, um, unless you're kind of joking about it.
Yeah.
Try and find something, maybe not positive about the situation, because maybe there isn't anything positive about the situation, but find something positive that you can do and better that you can be to help yourself deal with that situation.
Yes, definitely. And when you talk about prisons, it reminds me of the conversation I had with a client of mine. He was saying when he was inside prison that you could either get a job, you can do whatever you want to do,
That's right.
or you can do courses now. And he chose, I
Yeah.
think, to do a course. So he thought, when I come out, I've got, I don't know, like say, for example, a bricklaying course or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Of
you,
course. He's using the bad situation and he's looking for the best way to pass the time to make that time go quicker
mm,
while learning a trade, which is going to help him when he leaves.
yeah,
These are all the things you can do. I mean, like you said in your job when you were a
yeah,
barman, it's very easy to get pigeonholed in a job and to get bored. For some of us, I understand that I get bored in a job sometimes. Which is why I will always try and tell people who tell me that they're bored in a job. I say, have you learned what any of your colleagues do? If some of your colleagues aren't doing the same job as you, they're maybe in a different department. Have you tried looking over their shoulder and seeing what they do? Maybe you'd like to do it. Maybe you'd like to try it. You got 10, 15 minutes spare. Why don't you go and shadow them or ask them about it? Expand your mind in some way. And even if you don't like what they're doing and you spent 5 minutes looking over their shoulder, you've still learned something. You've learned another thing you don't want to do.
I love that.
I always say that. Go and see what someone else is doing. It's not jealousy. It's not the grass is greener. Someone go, oh, you shouldn't be looking over the fence. Grass isn't always greener. No, that's right. It isn't always greener. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. But go and look anyway. And at least then you'll know if you do want to pursue it or you don't want to pursue it. There are many jobs in life I thought I wanted to do, and I'm glad I didn't end up going down those routes, because later on, at some point in my life, I met someone who did it, or I had a closer inspection at another point in time, and I thought, wow, thank God I didn't go down that route after all. When I was at school, I thought I really wanted to do that. If I did that now, I'd be out of my mind with boredom.
It is interesting, isn't it? It's interesting what people do and what some people like, isn't it? I think it goes even deeper, doesn't it? Into people's makeup and their personality and all sorts of stuff. It's really fast.
Again, you've led this right back to something we talked about off air. Know yourself. If you know yourself, then it will help you so much to know what it is that you are supposed to be doing on this planet while you're alive. Not necessarily a career,
Mm,
but at least know yourself in order to perhaps pursue a hobby that you know you love because it's part of you, it's part of who you are. I know people, I mean, you probably know a lot more of them, surfers, people who surf,
yeah.
and for them, it's like a spiritual thing. They
Mm,
might work in an office Monday to Friday, but come Friday afternoon, they're out there, they're on the beach and they're in the sea, and they know that's who they really are. They go to work for the money so they can buy themselves a wetsuit, surfboard, and a car and a place to rent for the weekend. But surfing is life. And as long as you know that, I'm always amazed by these people, never so slightly jealous. I think, wow, you know who you are. You know what brings you maximum happiness. And you know why you go to work Monday to Friday, nine to five. And I love that. You've got exactly what you want out of your life, and that's brilliant. Unfortunately, not all of us are like that. I'm more complicated than that. You're probably more complicated than that. But like going back to what you said, is try and find out who you are.
mm,
Personalities, characters, we're all different.
mm,
Find out where your personality, your character fits.
mm,
What does it have a really good fit with, either
mm,
career wise or hobby wise? Your hobby could become your job, or you could just keep your hobby as your hobby because you need it as your safe space
mm,
to decompress from your day job.
mm,
I know people that were really good at singing or playing an instrument, and that was their hobby. And then they decided to take it semi professionally. Years later, talking to them, they hated it. They hated that thing that they used to have a passion for because it was their day job and it was all they did. So they had no way to decompress from that because that was their original decompression from life. After a crappy day at the office, they'd come back, plug their guitar into an amp, and they'd just like play, and they would decompress. Now that they were in a band and that was their day job, and they had to come up with songs and they had gigs to go to and plan and manage and finances to sort out, they no longer enjoyed it. They hated it. So again, know yourself. There are other people that love it. And they're like, yeah, best thing ever. I play in a band, I also manage it, I sort out the finances, I sort out the transport, we work out gigs. Okay, that's great for you. Find out who you are, what suits you. If I had a hobby, I know I probably wouldn't want to do it as a day job. I'd keep my hobby as a hobby because I'd need that hobby as my decompression from my day job.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's a
If
really
you
good
like
point. Like,
cooking, for example, I once wanted to become a chef. I really, because I love cooking, but I only love cooking as a hobby, as a decompression. Because I watched a few documentaries on it when I really thought this is it. This is make. I'm gonna go for chefing now. I'm going to join a college. This is it. And then someone sat me down and said, right, you need to know a few things about really what's involved, which I don't think you really understand, Adrian. He told me, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you're going to be up at 3 in the morning potentially. You're going to have to drive all the way to one of the markets, go and pick your fruit and veg, decide what the menu's going to be. Then you're going to have to go back. It's still going to be dark, 5 o'clock in the morning, go back to the kitchen, and you're never going to see daylight potentially, especially in the winter months. You'll be fluorescent lights in that kitchen until you leave at 6 in the evening. He said, is that what, tell me if that's part of your personality, you don't care about daylight and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty passionate about daylight. I love to be, I need to see the sun at some point during my day. He goes, this really isn't the job for you then, mate. He goes, high pressure, very rarely outside. Are you sure about this? Because this could be the rest of your life. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it as a hobby.
it's it is wild, isn't it? You know, like that. Chefing industry, you got to be a certain kind of person. Because I know it just reminded me when you're talking about that. I experienced that working in really good hotel, the Isle of Rocks in
Yeah,
Cornwall, and
yeah,
the kitchen had no windows
that's
at
right.
all, no
No,
windows. And I remember being just doing the back kitchen stuff, doing the coffee machine, taking
yeah,
the plates out.
you and me both. I've done that.
Yeah, and I went in, it was dark, and I left, and then it was dark, and I experienced
That's
that
it.
for like I think quite a lot. I was on the back kitchen for like 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and it's very strange. And if you like
yeah.
daylight and sunlight, and you know, then
Seeing
yeah,
more people than just the 6 people in the kitchen, then
yeah,
it's really, I mean, I did it further on to that. I did a bit of sous chefing. Well, not really sous chefing, but I used to do the starters and desserts, but I was working alongside all the other chefs. Um,
mise en
and yeah,
place.
it was fun while it lasted, but I couldn't have done it any longer than I did it. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm glad I had a taster. It's not for
Mm,
me. I'll just keep it as a hobby at home.
yeah. But like you said, it's dipping your toe in the water, isn't it? And going, okay,
Yes.
and knowing yourself, like you said, if you know yourself,
Yeah.
and you have that feeling like this isn't for me, and then trust that, isn't it?
Then, I mean, everything you just said is perfect. Exactly. Know yourself and dipping your toe in the water. And that suddenly just clicked to me as well. Then I had this other passion, which was scuba diving.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was a scuba diver, had my PADI open diver, and I was working my way up through all the other qualifications. Um, Dived in Egypt many, many times, and dived in England in some of the coldest, murkiest, most horrible waters ever. Um, yeah, I had rescue diver as well, so I did that. And I was really going to take that further. I had dreams in my mind. I'm going to go and be a scuba instructor, as you probably see on holiday when you go abroad and you're on the beach. You see people trying to get you to come scuba diving for the day. I thought that's the life for me. I don't need much. I'll just live on some tropical island or live in Thailand and I'll just run a small little diving club and I'll just live the life of Riley. And that nearly happened. I nearly went down that route because I was a diver, I was competent, and I enjoyed it. It was a hobby that I was then poised, ready to turn it into my full time day job, if you like. And then life happened. Took a dive one day, it was in Swanage, and I burst my eardrum, and blood was just gushing out of the side of my head. And I basically made a mistake. I had gone down too quickly, hadn't gone down slow enough, and I burst the eardrum. I thought nothing of it. I was in my 20s at the time. I'm well hard, no problem. Rested a year, didn't go diving for a year. Following a year, I went to Egypt, dived again, was cautious this time, still doing the right thing. I was cautious. Eardrum went again. I had to go into decompression, spoke to a decompression doctor, and he said, your ear is never going to be the same again. He said, if you've got any plans to do scuba diving, I'm sorry, but that was your last dive. And that changed the course of what I was going to do. I can still dive, but I can't dive deep because now I have a permanent problem with
Yeah,
my ear. I mean, I could
that's
probably get it
wild.
artificially repaired, but at a cost of
Mm,
thousands. And for what? Yeah, I
yeah,
don't need it anymore.
that's
But
wild,
yeah,
isn't it? I
so
mean,
that's why life sometimes happens to you.
mm,
You can have a plan, you can have a goal, you can have a dream, but then something will come along and put a spanner
mm,
right in those cogs.
mm. That's crazy, isn't it? Like you like you said, you know, can have it all planned out. I'm going to do this X, Y, Z,
I was
and
a
then something
competent diver.
happens.
I'd done years of casual diving, and I'd gone through a club, and I'd got my PADI, and I got my rescue diver. I was competent, and then one little mistake plus biology, your body. Sometimes we don't have complete command over our bodies. What pressure
Mm,
they can take, and what pressure they can't take at any given moment.
mm.
And my body just decided to give out.
Diving scares the crap out of me. From what I've seen, like I've never done it, so I shouldn't not never do it. Do you know what I mean? But like say,
I,
be
I'll be
aware.
completely honest with you. It scared the crap out of me too. The thing that I liked about it, which overrode the fear, was
Yeah.
the peacefulness.
Mm,
When you're down there and all you can hear is your exhaling breath and you're seeing these fish, you suddenly forget about the fear
mm,
and you're just completely besotted with what you're seeing, especially if it's in a beautiful part of the world.
mm,
You completely forget yourself. You're like, wow. And then you forget you're frightened.
mm.
And after that, you're hooked.
Yeah.
After that, you're hooked. Because that's what happened to me. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to go down again.
No, I love that.
It's really good. You've got to do it, but don't do it in Britain first. Do it somewhere exotic
Yeah.
first. Go
So
go
what you can
abroad.
see.
Yeah, that is like that. Swan Edge was just awful. 4 foot visibility, terrible.
I won't do it in the Thames.
No way.
I've,
Oh my
I've,
God, no.
I've heard there's like loads of like cocaine and stuff in the Thames
Yeah.
and traces of like all sort. You come out
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
flying.
No way. That now that's not fun. That's not a hobby. That's like a prison sentence. That
Yeah,
is.
that's it.
But yeah, that's what I
No,
mean. Is just try and learn about who you are and learn about what
definitely.
your body can do as well.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, definitely.
maybe you've got desires or dreams to be a pilot, perhaps,
Mm,
and maybe you didn't know that you had a particular health concern.
mm,
I know someone I went to school with, and he thought he was going to be a pilot, so I brought it up. And then he had to go through all the health checks, and then discovered he had a hole in the heart.
mm.
And they were like, "No, um, you're going to struggle." So that was the end of his dream.
Yeah, you just never know, do you? Sometimes you're working towards something and then something might happen, or you might discover you have an underlying thing, which then changes the trajectory of your
Yeah,
life, isn't it? In a different
yeah.
path. And yeah, I think that's one of the fascinating things about life, isn't it? It's
It's not the end. I don't want people to. Again, I'm very keen on people not being despondent
yeah,
because of all the things I've been through as well that I was despondent about. I'm always reminded about boxing, boxing corners, trainers. Think of the people that train some of the famous boxers. Those trainers weren't necessarily world champions themselves. They got so far in the journey up to potentially being champions themselves, and they never made it. Some of them. It didn't stop them. They're still in the industry, and now they're training world champions. because they know what to do, and through their own failures and faults, they know not what not to do. So I always tell people, just because you weren't able to do that one thing that you wanted to do doesn't mean you can't still stay in the industry. Now you can be a teacher, you can be a trainer, you can tell people the pitfalls because you know, because you fell down one of them.
That's it, and that's like using your experience, isn't it? And then you could like people do like lecturing, don't they? Or they do like
Any form of communicating with people.
consulting, and
Yeah,
auditing.
consulting. Yeah. I always tell people, don't be despondent if it didn't work out for you, especially if it didn't work out for you after you spent all that time, money, and energy. You can still be in that arena.
No, definitely. And there's always
Imagine you're a jockey. You've been riding
hmm,
horses all your life. Suddenly, I don't know, the horse rears up and you fall over and you break your legs or you break your back. Okay, you're not going to be a jockey again potentially. You're not out of the industry. You still have so much to offer.
because you take all that experience, don't you, and knowledge, and you
Exactly what we said
apply it,
before. You've got
yeah,
that
in a
treasure
different way.
chest, go and plunder it.
Mm. Because I've got friends, two of my friends in the States, they're ex-military, and they obviously in combat zones, they know human behavior and
Yes,
situations, and they do courses on, security and human behavior and things like that.
absolutely. I always
So
think the
they,
world is really wide open to ex-police, ex-military people. I did 12 years in the police, and I found it a massive help and not a hindrance to my future. Now, this is actually interesting. So again, we seem to be coming back in circles, which I love, despite the fact that the world, the business world, looks down upon, generally speaking, potential employees from those backgrounds. I know that because I have it said about me, and I've joined online groups who try and help people from police and military backgrounds get jobs. And what we hear over and over again is that the company that these people are trying to join don't want them because they're from police and military backgrounds. When you go back to the company and say, well, why didn't you want to hire that person? And they say, well, military, they're going to have no initiative. They're going to just want to follow orders. They're not going to be able to work on their own. And the first thing he says, are you mental? These people, more than probably anyone else on the face of the earth, know how to improvise. They're given the discipline at the beginning of their entry into the police or the military in order to be able to listen, because when you're a human being, we don't tend to listen to each other. And that's what the discipline's all about. You will listen to your superior. After you've got through initial training, then you're going to be told, this is how you get out of this situation. We're going to give you a toolbox, so to speak, mentally and potentially physically. And you've got to then just use your initiative to get out of these situations that may happen to you out in the field. You're not going to be calling up going, excuse me, boss, excuse me, sir, how do I get out of this? No, these people have the initiative. But for some weird reason, people in the private sector who have no real knowledge, generally speaking, of people from military and police backgrounds, they just think that they're robots and they don't hire them.
it's
So
sad that
weird.
people it's sad that people think that way. Because I mean, in the job that I do, there's a lot of ex-military and there's a lot of ex-police who
Yeah,
do what I do, and I work with them, and sometimes, and they're great, great people. Do you know what I mean?
absolutely. We
And
had
I'd
them in the
hire them
police. We
any
had
day.
ex-military join the police, and they were right off the bat they were brilliant because they could use initiative. They didn't hang around to wait for orders necessarily. We loved working with them, ex-military people. And I think they really could be an absolute asset to any business, as long as obviously they're in the right line of work for what it is that they want to do. I don't see any problem with it at all.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it's working on your feet. You're using your own initiative, trusting your instincts, isn't it? Trusting yourself, human behavior,
They've got a level of self-discipline.
thinking.
They've got a level of communicating and understanding and listening, as they have to in order to carry out whatever mission that they've been tasked with. So they've got so many things going for them, and I always found it sad that they were overlooked
Mm,
because of some perceived flaw in the nature of their career,
mm, yeah.
which goes back to again, people live in their bubbles.
Mm,
They don't really have enough knowledge of other people or other people's jobs or what's involved or entailed in those jobs.
mm. Yeah, and I think that goes into like, why it's important to see documentaries, isn't it? See why people, different avenues of life, opens your eyes.
Yes.
And what what I'll do, this is I'll come to my mind. I usually ask people on the podcast, like towards the end, usually favorite films. Do you have a favorite film, Adrian? Any films you like?
Oh, okay.
I don't know
So
if
when
I've
I get
ever.
asked questions like this, I always say that it's too hard. It's like choosing a favorite child if you had 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah.
It's too hard to choose one. There are so many great ones, and they all depend on what it was that you wanted from that film. If you wanted
Yes.
something
Yeah.
funny, you choose a funny film. You want something serious, you choose a serious film.
Mm.
So it depends. I mean, there are so many films. You could ask me 10 times on your podcast, and I'd give you a different answer every time. I could always say
You say what? Yeah. Well,
one of my favorite films. Oh my God, there are so many though.
do you like
Um,
any Tarantino films?
yes, I love Tarantino.
Which one do you
For,
like the
for, for, for
best?
me, he's been, I mean, I could talk, we could do another podcast
Yeah.
just on
Yeah.
Tarantino.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so favorite Tarantino for me is going to be Pulp Fiction.
Nice.
I love all his films, all of them.
Yeah.
At least I think I've seen all of them.
Yeah.
But for me, Pulp Fiction, for me, because it was the first Tarantino film I saw, and it blew my
Mm.
mind, just blew my mind. The style of it, the way it's all haphazardly edited together at different time intervals, just love it. The
Mm.
music, all the famous actors that he'd pulled together. I mean, for me, it was just iconic. Um, the quotable lines that people still quote today.
Mm.
I mean, it stands the test of time. It's just a fabulous movie, and you can watch it. Although it's quite graphic with its
Yeah. Yeah.
violence, it's massively comical.
Mm.
It's almost slapstick.
Mm.
I think it's top 10, one of the top 10 films for me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And I make comments if I'm ever drinking something like that's refreshing or nice,
Yeah.
I'd always say to my girlfriend like, tasty cold beverage to wash it down.
Whenever I eat a burger, I cannot
Yeah,
help but say,
yeah,
that is a tasty
yeah,
burger. I just can't help it.
yeah,
So I mean, quotable lines that will live,
yeah.
well, certainly as long as people watch the film and like
Yeah,
it, and they'll quote it.
definitely timeless. Yeah, no, it's
Love it. Or you go, you talk about the Royale with cheese.
oh
Why do
yeah.
they call it the Royale with
Yeah.
cheese? Because in France they don't have the metric system.
Yeah.
Just quotable, so quotable.
It's a good film, isn't it? And it's like one of those films I think if you like it, you can watch it over and over again. I want
And
to.
I do. I still do to
Yeah.
this day. If I'm thinking, I don't know, you go into Netflix or Amazon Prime, you're like, what shall I watch? And you've got so much choice. And you think, I'll just go back to a classic.
Mm,
And I do. I mean, there's so
yeah.
many. So Tarantino, that sci-fi for me, Interstellar, number one film.
Oh, class. Yeah.
For me,
That's pretty good.
I think that I love the director, oh my
Oh,
God, Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just absolutely love his work. I love his work.
It's like an art form, isn't it?
It isn't like an art form, and that's why I love it. It went beyond the classic 2001, Stanley Kubrick's 2001. It took
That
that
was
to a whole other
interesting.
level. I love that film as well. It's a little dated, but the
Yeah.
concept is amazing. But Interstellar for me was just chef's kiss.
Mm.
Got me emotional. It's
Yeah, it is quite
any
emotional
yeah. If a
actually.
film can make me sort of feel a bit, you know, then
Mm.
it normally gets my seal of approval. And
Mm.
Christopher Nolan definitely did that in that film. Fantastic film.
Yeah. Yeah, I love him when he did the Dark Knight as well. Like I'm a big
Yes,
fan of the Batman films.
me too. But yeah, Dark Knight, very well produced and directed by Mr. Nolan. I really rate him. I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I can't wait to watch it for that
Yeah,
reason. Christopher Nolan film.
it's like a documentary. It's where it's filmed. It's really good. If you like his films, and you'll like it.
Yeah, can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's I think like like it's important to watch different films, isn't it? It gives you.
I really I love art in general. Uh, for
Mm,
me, art is a way that I find is a I feel I don't know why I feel very at peace when I'm surrounded by art. Films, painting, stories, comics, graphic novels. I love it. I love the art form because it
mm,
communicates so much. In a film, hour and 20 minutes, you can go through a range of emotions. And you get excited when the director and the producer and the actors have come together and formed something that you, as a human being that they've never met and never will meet, has produced something that you can then relate to. You're watching it and you're getting all excited. You're getting that feeling in your chest, like, oh, this is me. I get this. And that's a wonderful feeling. And that's why I think art has that power. It's not just in films. You can look at you can go to a gallery and see a painting or a photograph that encapsulates something that you feel passionate about or that reflects you like a mirror. You're like, oh my God, this is how I feel. And it's easier to find that in art sometimes than it is in people because people have layers. And to get through to who they really are, they've got so many masks and so many walls to have to pull all those down to get to the real person to find out if they are like you can take so long. But art, it's direct.
mm,
In 5 minutes, you're into a film, you know if it's you or if it's not you.
mm.
And
I love
sometimes you
that.
have that with people. You meet someone, you're like, yes, you get me. You're like me.
Yeah.
We see the world pretty much the same way. Love you. It's a great feeling. But I find that easier with art and books. You can start reading a book. You're like, oh my God, I
Mm,
love this book. I can't put this book down. It speaks of all the values that I have, or if I don't have those values, are the values I want, they're the values I believe in. That's it. Art
mm.
in all its forms.
Definitely. Just clicks for you, doesn't it?
I
I
love it
pre
when that happens.
no, I appreciate you sharing your insights on that and sharing what your favorite film was. I think, it's really interesting when people pick films and why. And I just want to say my phone's on about 10%. It went from at 80 to 10. I yeah, I just want to say, it's an absolute pleasure to connect with you again, Adrian. It's been a while, and I've really had a great time talking to you. And I think we've covered really good deep topics. That sometimes aren't always talked about. And
Definitely.
I think you come from a real genuine place, and I respect you. And I'm grateful to have you as my friend. And it's good to see you again.
Thanks, Adam. It's absolute pleasure to be on the podcast. Thanks for inviting me back. And let's not leave it 3 years. Like I think it
Yeah,
was the last
definitely,
time that we
definitely
spoke to
won't.
each other.
Definitely, no, we won't. We definitely won't. And where
Nice.
can people find if they need to email you or they want to reach out with
I'm on LinkedIn
reach out?
under my
Yeah.
full name,
Okay.
so people that's the easiest way in to get hold of me. Look me up on
Right.
LinkedIn, and you can actually learn a bit about what I do.
Awesome. No, great podcast, Adrian, and I wish you all the best in everything you do. And hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.